All right, I think we could get started, everyone. Again, welcome to Teaching in the Online Environment. Can you hear me? Just doing a quick check once again. So let me know if you can hear me or if you cannot hear me, and we could tweak that as well. But I know we did a check earlier, and everything seems fine, good to go. So welcome to great. Thank you so much for that, Roger. So welcome to this particular session on thank you, Calicia, teaching in the online environment. This is going to be a very hands-on session, like most of our sessions, I would hope so. And we're going to look a little bit into remote teaching and learning along the way. Because this is the context that we're in. All right, we have been doing it for quite some time now, so I'm not going to call it emergency remote teaching, but I would say remote teaching and learning. So that is part and parcel of what we're going to look at here today. So keep that in mind. Okay, so we can just get straight into it. Now I have a little bit of an icebreaker, as you would probably you probably guessed, because I like to start with icebreakers, especially given the fact that this session has been scheduled right after lunch. So I don't know what your day has been like, but for those of you who had lunch, especially a heavy lunch,
I don't know if anybody's talking, but I cannot hear anything.
You can't hear anything? Grace? Can you hear anything? Okay, let me just type in the chat just to make sure. Okay. Okay. All right. So very quickly, I'd like to start with an icebreaker, but even before we get to that icebreaker, I just want to show you a little bit of some of the basic features in Blackboard that would allow you to engage your students on a particular level. So let me just explain. Some of you might be familiar with Blackboard already, so I don't have I probably wouldn't have to go as detailed. Okay. Right. So great. So just to explain the layout of Blackboard here, you would see right under your slide there are a couple of icons. I'll start at the right of this. You would see a little icon, sort of almost a watermark icon with a hand, with someone looking like he's waving his hand or raising his hand, and that's exactly what it is. It's in a face-to-face class, you would have students raise their hand if they wanted to make a contribution or to ask a question or to make a comment and so on. And this is the icon that you would use for students to do that, just that. All right. Now this is particularly useful, especially when you have large classes and you would like to sort of manage your session so that students aren't talking over each other and we miss what's going on. All right. So you definitely at the very beginning of your sessions, You want to use that
hearing
particular.
anything. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay. Well, that's good. But I need to hear you now. Okay, let's see what I can do next.
Okay, just give me 1 sec, guys. Just trying to help Grace here. All right, so good. So that's
I am
the
using Google Chrome.
Okay.
Okay, why is this thing not responding? Come on.
Oh.
Alright, where else can I log in from? Let me try. Try this.
Hi, Lester. Hi, Lester.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon.
Okay, great. I know you can hear me.
You're breaking up a lot. I'm hardly recognizing what you're saying.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I'm hearing you, but not clearly. I'm hearing.
Okay, all right.
What is statics in the background?
Sorry?
A lot of statics going in the background. Noise.
I'm hearing. You are breaking up a bit. I'm not sure if it's your connection.
Well, maybe it's mine because I have a hotspot. I'm not at home.
Oh,
So
okay, yes.
So it may be a
Okay.
hotspot I'm using.
Okay, no problem. Nalini?
Sorry about that, pardon?
Hi,
Nalini?
Dr.
Go ahead.
Is it okay for me to share the link with other members of faculty that didn't register previously for the course?
Sure, no problem, no problem.
Okay, great.
Once they come in, they'll just need to put their names so we could make sure we have the attendance.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, great. I see, okay, Beverly is not hearing well. Right? So that should, okay, great, Beverly. All right. I think that should be everyone now. I'm not sure. Let me just mute some mic so we don't get that feedback. All right. Okay, so we should be pretty good now, hopefully. I see some others are joining. No, Isadora, that's okay. If you are, if you might be using Safari or Firefox, those platforms work fairly okay as well. Oh, you're using Edge, okay. It usually doesn't work very well on Edge, but that's okay. If anything goes wrong, then you could switch. All right. Okay, so let's get straight into it. So, so I just explained the raise hand icon. Okay, thank you so much for that, Senator. And I hope I pronounced that correct. Please let me know if I mispronounced it. I'm sorry if I did.
It's right, it's correct.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope it wasn't a fluke, right? All right. So I was just going through the icons at the bottom of the slide that is in front of you right now. You have your raise hand icon. So let's say you have a class of 20, 30, sometimes even 100, 80, 100 or more students in your session at a time. You definitely would, I recommend using the raise hand icon, which is right at the bottom there. It looks like he's raising a hand, all right? And that would let you know who wants to raise, when and who wants to raise a comment or ask a particular question. It's a good way to manage the contributions made by students in your class, so that students aren't talking over each other and things are being missed and, you know, it gets chaotic. All right, so it's a good tool for classroom management. The next icon on the left of that, you would see the camera icon. Generally, that could remain off. If you would like to put yours on, let's say in your particular session, that is perfectly fine. But you definitely shouldn't ask students to put theirs on, to put their camera on, sorry. Why? Because it they sometimes are not on the strongest network, or they have limited bandwidth and so on. And so it would, you know, it would demand a lot on their bandwidth, and so it will be a very glitchy experience for them, which you probably don't want. All right. So if you are sharing your camera, that is perfectly fine, but I definitely don't recommend forcing students to do the same. All right. Now, there are different ways you might find. You might probably wonder, well, how do we know students are paying attention? And that is what this session is all about. There are different ways you can find out what part of what this session is about. There are different ways you can find, you can verify that students are indeed not just in attendance, but also participating. All right, so we'll get into it, don't worry. And and yes, so on the left side of that camera icon, we have of course, the microphone icon. So normally that works hand in hand with the raise hand icon. When students raise their hands, you get a particular sound or notification on your end where so-and-so has raised their hand, and you get a sound with it. And then the facilitator, well, that'll be you, can allow the student or cue the student to make their contribution, make his or her contribution. All right? But generally that would remain off as well, because you don't want feedback and those sorts of things. And on the left of that, you have a sort of watermark icon with a green, well, you should see a green tick in front of it. Now, that icon is something that you can use to engage students further. It can function like a quick poll, and I'll show you in just a bit. But it also gives you some idea of any particular students, of your internet connection, how strong it is, that sort of thing. So, for example, Lester, I hope I'm not, you know, how to say this, shining you up too much. I hope you're not offended, you don't take offense. But let's say, for example, Lester mentioned he was on a particular, not a network or connection that wasn't too strong. So Lester might easily click on this icon right at the bottom of the slide again, the watermark icon, and he would see his status, which would indicate his network connection. Normally, if it's green and you have all the bars up, then you know you have a very strong connection. Yeah? If it's red or yellow, that is not so good. It's not a very strong connection. You know, there's a particular animal, and I'm sure we have persons from science and agriculture here who would know that there's a particular animal, I think it's a coral snake, red or yellow, killer fellow, and I can't remember the rest of it, but you get the gist of it, right? So, so that is that. So definitely you want to make use of that. Now I'm gonna ask you also to click on the lower right side. You would see a purplish sort of icon or arrowhead. If you click on that, it's the same icon you use to access the chat. All right. You would see the attendance. You would see next to the chat. So the chat is one icon you can use to engage your students. All right, and I see we, of course, we're using the chat. Thank you so much for that. All right, and next to the chat icon, you would see attendees, the attendees list. All right, everyone can see should be able to see the attendees list. All right, is there anyone who cannot see the attendees list? Yes, Grace?
I'm not seeing it. I'm not sure.
All right.
I'm seeing the people at the bottom. I guess if
right,
I click that.
Right, so it's on the right side, the lower right side of the screen.
Okay, let's see.
So when you click on that arrowhead, you're seeing a little purple, like a little
Yes,
purple.
yes, okay, is that it? Oh, yes,
Yes.
yes. Oh, that gives me chat and everything. Okay, good.
Yes, yes. So that's exactly it. You're on the right track, don't worry. All right, so you see the chat. Now the chat, of course, is what you want to pay attention to, because students will be, sometimes students may not, first of all, have a microphone, or they may not be as comfortable using their microphones and speaking, but they will definitely post in the chat. All right, and you might have it the other way around. Sometimes you might have students who may not be good at typing, but they would feel more comfortable using their mics. So you want to pay attention to both. Yeah, I know it sounds like a lot, but trust me, it makes for a more engaging session. All right, so we have some persons who have joined. I think we have Rajiv, is that it? Yeah. All right, and hopefully I got that correct. Anyway, so once you're in the attendees list, now I want you to go back and click on that icon, the watermark icon under that slide that is in front of you. Click on it, and you would see feedback. All right, now this is a quick way to engage your students. So if you, for example, you would like to ask a very quick question without having to type it and type the responses and so on. If I ask you, for example, how do you feel? Nalini is already shocked or surprised. How do you feel about lunch? What are your sentiments regarding lunch today? What would you, so click on anything that indicates your sentiments. So we have two persons who are surprised. Hopefully that's a good surprise. One person is sad, and we have 6 persons so far who are happy, 7 persons who are happy. Lester, why are you so sad? I could see, and of course now you could see the responses next to each person's name. So this now lets you engage students on another level now, more than just they clicking on a response, but they can you can engage students accordingly. So Desiree or Lester, anyone, why are you sad? You didn't have lunch yet. Okay, there you go.
I didn't have any yet.
So you and Lester have something in common, right? So Beverly, I see you're shocked. Do you want to elaborate on that? Why are you shocked?
No, not really. I didn't eat anything as yet. I think everybody ate. So I'm cooking.
Fair enough. But even with this, picture how, so I want you to think now how this tool or feature can be used in your sessions. It's a much faster way than using the poll, where you could easily verbalize a question and students can give a quick response. And you would see at the top of the attendees list the number of persons who have a particular, yes, Nalini, fair enough, right? And you see the number of persons who have certain reactions or feel a particular way about it. Let's say, for example, let me choose someone here. Let's say Professor Steele. Let's say you have a particular controversial issue in your class. When I say a topic, I should say. Let's say in terms of health communication. Oh, this is definitely in your lane here. Let's say something about health communication. The communication of information regarding the vaccines, the COVID vaccines. All right. You might want to ask students, how do you feel about such and such vaccine, or about the way information is being communicated regarding the vaccines? I'm just giving a general example. Yeah.
It's a good example because I used that yesterday in class.
Well, good. Thank God for
that. I used a poll, but using the feedback could be a more efficient way to do it.
Yes, definitely. The thing with the poll, and I'll show you how to use the poll as well, but the thing with the poll is that every time you go away from, let's say you go to, you set up the poll and go back to your slides, you lose the poll and you have to type it all over again, or copy and paste it into the thing, which takes time.
Yes.
So it might be better to just ask the question and let students give their feedback, and that way you could get more specific feedback in terms of identify students who feel a particular way, and you can prompt them to elaborate, and that sort of stimulates a classroom activity. Yeah.
Yes, I was trying to locate the feedback icon. I'm on the attendees page.
Right. So all you have to do is click under the slide. You would see the
Raised hand.
watermark icon.
Oh, the watermark icon.
Yeah, with like a person looking like a shadow. It's about on the left of the raise hand icon.
Okay.
Next to the microphone, basically.
Yes, yes.
So click on that.
Good. I'm seeing it. Yeah.
So anybody, let's ask Beverly. Could you ask a question that you would require some feedback from the rest of our colleagues here? A simple question, though, please.
Yes. Yes. No would help.
Hi. Did you all have rain by your house today, your home, your environment?
Sorry, what did you say?
I said, did you all have rain today by your environment?
Right. Or you might ask, how do you feel about the weather today, or something of that sort. I might say, surprise that rain fell, right? Or that there's sunshine, either one. But you have persons, so for example, Godfrey is happy about the weather. Isadora is confused about the weather, right? I can understand that. Roger is sad. Roger, why are you sad about the weather? Roger? Hot sun on your... All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so good, guys. So you see how this can be used. And of course, from there, Beverly could engage students in her class. So why one person is confused, why one person is sad, that sort of thing. So we haven't really gotten into the session yet, but we see how this, and yes, Grace, thank you for that. But we see how it can be used even within Blackboard, how it can be used for student engagement. Any questions on that? Yes? Go ahead, Calasia.
Hi, Justin. Good
Hi,
afternoon. Hi. I was looking at the fast and slower. Is that to speak slower or to move faster? What are those two options?
Right.
For?
So those options are, let's say, for example, if for example, you might want feedback on the pace of your session, right? And when we get into a little part of this workshop on student-centered learning, student-centered teaching, that comes in very handy, whether it's something that you want to get feedback from students, whether you're going too quickly or you want them, they would like you to slow down a little bit, or you could pick up the pace, or it might be, it depends on the question. You could tweak it to suit. Those are just generic feedback icons. Yeah. So good question, Desiree. It would help because then you could identify who feels what or who has certain sentiments, as opposed to just a general. If the attendees ribbon or field is not open, then you're just going to see, okay, 21 persons feel happy, 2 persons feel sad, you know, that kind of thing. But you want to get probably more insightful data or more insightful you want further insight to the responses, which is where you will click the attendees to see who felt a particular way. Yeah? Great. So I know we didn't really get started officially, but you know, I just wanted to show you that because I think it's a very, very quick way and efficient way to engage your students. Now I'm going to share with you a couple links here, and it's really because I like to start with a quick icebreaker. All right, I know we kind of technically broke the ice, but I'm still posting it nonetheless because it's another tool that you may or may not want to include in your sessions. This is another way to engage students. It's called Poll Everywhere. All right. And now one of the things I'll do during the course of this session is not just tell you about a tool, because of, you know, I'm mindful of the time. I'll be modeling. So a lot of what you see, I'll try to model. Sorry, a lot of what I'll be doing today will be modeling. So you can then see not just how to use the tool, sorry, not just to know about the tool, but more so how to use it. Yeah? So you would see there, let me just share my screen. So I'll open up the pool. One sec. And there we go. Okay, so you would see the poll, and you should see a question that, oh, okay, has your technology, we already have some responses here, has your technology use changed between pre-COVID and now? So that's a definite yes. Okay, good, and understandably so. All right, and I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing because a lot of this, in this current dispensation, a lot of it is about adjusting and making, you know, adjusting to the current landscape of education. So the second question, what technology tools have you used in your teaching practice or educational context prior to COVID-19? So just click on the next link and you can insert the responses. All right. Yes, Godfrey, that is a very good question. And yes, that is exactly what you would want to use to gauge attendance in your session. So for example, if you have a class list, a hard copy class list, and you want to gauge who is, in fact, I have one now, so I can gauge, because when we need to do feedback, evaluation of this session, I would want to know, okay, who attended, so we can send the evaluation link to the necessary persons. All right. So yes, to answer your question, yes. Right. So we have some of the technology tools you use prior to COVID were clearly Blackboard Collaborate, Kahoot, Zoom, Wiki, as in Wikipedia or Wikispace, or if you could elaborate, please. MS Teams, Microsoft Teams, okay. Zoom, BBC Teams, all right, good. So you're using a lot of synchronous platforms. Right. I like how you said the pre-COVID era. Yes. Okay, good. So we have a good bit of persons here who are quite familiar with Blackboard Collaborate and or Zoom and even MS Teams. So good, very good. So in the third question, computer, so you generally use your computer and hands-on. Okay, good. And that is perfectly fine. So let's move on to the third question. Were you comfortable using those tools? Thus far, everyone said yes. Okay, so that's good. So you're comfortable using Blackboard Collaborate. You're fairly comfortable using Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Good. What are some of the hindrances or issues you faced in using the technologies in your educational context? Well, we have the main one that seems to be, well, the response thus far is issues with regard to internet connectivity. Right, so there we have another one, yes, connectivity. All right, the quality of the network connection. Right, and of course, that encompasses bandwidth issues, and then of course, by extension, what you can do if you have that limited bandwidth and so on. Yeah? Right, good. Someone said it right, connectivity or bandwidth, good. It is time consuming, okay, to plan lessons versus face-to-face. Could you elaborate? I'm not sure who said it, but could you elaborate perhaps, and we could look further into that issue? You could use your mic or text if you'd like, either one is fine.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good
Hello.
afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. For example, let's say you are doing a video or something, all right? Because now you have to have everything there visually for the learner. It takes
Right.
long, for example, to plan these videos. Yes, and then in a couple of seconds it's all gone after I spent all night preparing it. So because you don't have that the face-to-face interaction, it's really a lot of work to do. For example, these polls you're doing, for instance, if I am there in front of the class, I can ask the question and elicit the responses. But to do it like this is really time consuming. To take the role, it's a lot of work. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, can I perhaps shed some tips on it and how to make it a little easier? Well, to make it a little easier, and maybe the benefits of it. Yes, it is time consuming in terms of creating these polls. Well, it's not too time consuming, but I understand that you need to put, even if it's a couple minutes aside, to create these polls. The good thing is that once you create them, you have them, well, as long as your account is existing. All right. So for example, this poll that I'm using here, I've done several iterations of it, because it's something that is relevant, of course, in the current situation that we're in. So you might have, and it's relevant to the field overall. So you might create a poll with general questions, and that can be used throughout either multiple sessions or for different cohorts of students. Yeah. So now I always say when it comes to online or blended learning, even with face-to-face, the first time around takes time because you have to plan everything from scratch, especially if that's the case, it takes time. But when you're doing it the next time around, you basically have all the resources at your fingertips. It's just a matter of planning, making some improvements here and there to ensure that, of course, your instruction is enhanced or more effective where necessary. So it's kind of like this. If you have a house, it takes time to build the house, the foundation, the rooms and the walls and the roof and so on and so on. But once you get that house up and running, well, not up and running, but completed, built, you just have to you might want to paint over a room in a different color, or you might want to add a little, some plants in the yard, minor tweaks that would help to make the entire house a better house to live in. So that's the kind of rationale behind it, that it takes time, yes. In the first instance, the first time you're building it, the first time you're creating these activities and so on, it takes time. But it saves time in the long run, because you don't have to do it over and over and over. Whereas with a poll, for example, with this, you can create it once, maybe tweak it as you go forward, but you basically have the poll and you can reuse it as you go along. Same thing with other tools I would show you later on in this session. All right, so hopefully that helps. And yeah, so and the next thing too is you probably don't want to take to create everything all at once. You know, this poll, for example, was created, I can't remember it for so long, but you might create one question or two questions in one, in a couple minutes, and then you might take a break and go create a next set of questions a couple days after. So it shouldn't take too long, generally speaking. And well, it depends on the activity, but let's say using the poll, the same example, yeah, you could break up the work and pace yourself accordingly. All right, so hopefully that helps. Some other hindrances: how to use PDF as opposed to PowerPoint. Yes, especially in Blackboard Collaborate. Yes, and we'll get into that in just a bit. All right, interruptions. Yes, disruptions coming in, microphones, for example. Yes, that has happened. And one thing that helps with that is just basically putting setting your housekeeping rules at the beginning of the session, but still mishaps do happen, so we have to always be mindful and vigilant, basically. All right, how do you feel about remote or online teaching and learning? So one person said it has its pros and cons, however with time it becomes very good. That is hinged also with what I was saying earlier, that with time it becomes easier. So the first time around, remember when we were doing emergency remote last year, everybody had to, adapt in such a short space of time. But now we have made the adjustments to our courses where necessary. Now we have more experience with Zoom and Blackboard. And so it's a little bit easier from that perspective, or at least it should be. All right. And someone said it is an exciting space where learning occurs. Definitely. Oh, someone said satisfied. I'm glad to hear these comments, to see these comments. I love it. It allows you to multitask and use your time. Very profitable. Yes. Some of you might be multitasking even now, right? But you miss the actual classroom. Yes. And in some instances, that face-to-face interaction is difficult to replicate or to fill the void. But you try as best as you can. You write dissonance with the human physical connection. Right. Yes, definitely. I agree with that. Right, Tracy, as a host, do you have access live as to who exactly is responding in the polls? When it's a poll, no. A poll is generic, so you don't see who responds, you just see the number of responses. When it's the feedback, you get to see who responds. Yeah? Someone said no road traffic to get to class. That is surely a benefit, right? Yes. And of course, there's a difference in the how lively discussions may be. Good. Thank you so much for that as well. But we definitely, if you have some hurdles to climb, we are definitely here to give you that support and really help you along the way. That's what this is all about. So during this session, we're going to look at a couple things, all right, that will guide us, and make sure it's a productive session. So we have a couple learning outcomes just to guide us, all right, that will, just to give you an outline of what we're going to cover today. Right, definitely, Tracy. Yes. When you use the feedback option, that's why I was really stressing the feedback tool as a way to give you more insightful information. Yeah. All right, so the learning outcomes for this particular session, we're going to look at remote teaching and learning. Like I said, that's the context we're in at the university. And then some strategies that might be useful to you in teaching in the online environment. And then how we can, in the midst of all of this, engage students in this realm, in this space. Someone mentioned that, the liveliness of discussions is not the same as face-to-face. But how do we get as close as possible to doing it in the live space, even though we're in the online environment? Yeah. And of course, along the way, we're going to look at some additional tools, because we looked at some already in Blackboard and also external to that, that would help you in engaging your students. So let's get straight into the, yes, definitely. How to deal with crickets is a, yes, Desiree. You know, one thing not to digress again, but one thing that I do to deal with that is call persons by name. You use the attendees list and you call persons by name, or you create certain activities where they have to respond. Or, like I said, you use the feedback tool, because some persons may not want to use their microphones because, you know, persons are some persons might not feel comfortable hearing themselves or speaking on a microphone to their peers. But if it's a feedback icon, you're definitely going to get a range of responses, because it still has some sort of, you know, the student doesn't feel that, you know, they're being exposed or, you know, highlighted too much. So let's look at our context first. All right, and then we'll know what we're dealing with or who we're dealing with and how we can deal with them. All right, so in our context, we know that, you know, I'm stressing remote teaching because we're online. Yes, we're currently delivering courses online or remotely. And I'm saying remotely because it's a temporary situation in our context. We're not going to be in this mode or mode of delivery forever. We hope to go back to, you know, face-to-face or blended at some point in time, but currently this is, you know, this is the current climate that we're in, or landscape that we're dealing with in terms of education, and we have to make those adjustments. Now, adjustments not just in terms of the delivery, course delivery, but also in terms of our teaching and learning practices. Yeah, because, you know, we have learners who some of them may be comfortable in the online environment and some may not. Likewise, you may be comfortable with some learning, some technologies, and there are other technologies that you may not be as familiar with or comfortable with. So it's all about adjusting, making these adjustments. Now, remote teaching and learning can be, it's obviously done primarily online. So two things you're definitely going to need would be the Blackboard Collaborate or Zoom and the learning management system. In our case, it's what we call My eLearning or Moodle. All courses have a shell in Moodle or My eLearning. And to access that, all you have to do is complete a form. I could provide the link to that form if you have not, if you do not have access to your course shell yet. All right. Please let me know, and I'll include it in the link. And I'll include the link in the chat. All right. So the avenues that you're going to use, and this is just a general, you know, general overview of it. Okay, no problem. I'll find it. I'll get the link for you, and I'll post it in the chat. And we'll take it from there, and you can complete the form. And it's a very short form, all right? And once you complete that form, you just take your name, of course, the course name and code, and then, of course, how to, the semester, maybe some contact information, and then you should get an email with the necessary information, all right? Sure, I'm putting it in the link now. And I'm posting the link in the chat now. Yes, Isadora. So part-time students part-time tutors can also access My Learning, but you must have a current contract that is processed and whatnot with HR and so on. So you definitely want to make sure that part-time staff, they have their contracts completed and processed by HR, so it can be added to the system or updated on the system via PeopleSoft and so on, and then they will automatically be added to My eLearning. All right. But that link that I just sent is the link you're going to use to access your course site. And then you're going to build what you have in front of you here. The course content, which would be like your readings, your videos, you know, case studies, and so on. And then you're also going to have activities, because remember, teaching and learning is not a passive process, but it's an active process. So where students have to do things or engage in different activities. Yeah? So you want to make sure that students, it's not just to go and read a whole chapter at home or to, you know, that kind of thing. It has to be engaging. Yeah? Then you also have assessments. Assessments, you know, this is important because you want to make sure that, of course, that students pass the course, right? Or that you have some idea of their performance or acquisition of the learning outcomes. Yeah? Now, assessments can take different forms. All right? You have, for example, quizzes, you have projects, a couple different things. One sec, please. Let me just fix something here. All right, so right, Godfrey said self-enrollment provides enrollment key access function. Right, so once you in that form, and thank you for bringing that up, reminding me of that, Godfrey. When you are making this request, it's very important that you make the request for different roles, and that's an amendment they made fairly recently, because what we found is that we would normally give all the keys for a particular course, whatever. So, for example, if you're requesting a course for the course key, the enrollment keys for health communication, I'm just calling a random course, then before you would get all the keys, and when I say all the keys for teacher, non-editing teacher, etc., etc. Now, however, they give you the specific key to that specific role. Because what we found is that persons are starting to mix up the keys and enroll themselves as non-editing teachers when they're really meant to be editing teachers. Yeah? So that is something, you know, you need to be mindful of. All right? And yes, it does take a while. In fact, we're dealing with some of that right now. So, you know, we often advise administrators to try as best as possible to make sure those contracts and documentations and so on are done as soon as possible, as soon as possible, because then it will allow for an easier transition into my learning and that sort of thing. All right. So like I said, these are some of the general things you're going to need for your particular course. All right. Now, it's important that with all of this, there's alignment. It must make sense. All right. It must make sense, and that's really what alignment is all about. What do I mean by alignment? Alignment is really where everything is cohesive. You know, everything. How to say? There's nothing that seems irrelevant or seems out of the way, so to speak. Yeah. So you definitely want to make sure that everything that is supposed to be in there is in there, and not material that is not necessary. All right. So if you have a particular module, you might want to use a discussion forum. Then it must make sense that that discussion forum activity is included in that particular module. If it's something that is what I'm trying to say is that it must make sense to the student as well, because it helps coherence. Yes. Thank you so much, Desiree. It's well connected. That's what I'm looking for, connected. All right, so your assessments, your activities, they're not arbitrarily done or included, but they make sense, almost like parts of a puzzle. All right, so it's an opportune time to really take, to stop and think a little bit, reflect on the structure of your course, and think about what activities could be amended, what activities could be included, and perhaps what activities may need to be replaced or taken out. Yeah? And this is an ongoing process. Sometimes you might realize when you do, let's say, module 1, 2, 3, and then you realize that your students might be struggling a bit with it, you might want to tweak activities in module 4, right? On a surface level, of course, not fundamental to change the entire course weighting and so on. But before we get to that, you want to make sure you understand your learners, as I mentioned. So you're kind of gauging what are some of the characteristics of your learners. And I'm providing you with a little link here that you can click on, and it will take you to what we call a Padlet page. Now, Padlet is a platform that will allow you to, well, first of all, it allows you to gauge students, to get students involved, to get students engaged. All right. Let me just bring it up for you so you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And so I want you to click on that link, and it should take you to a Padlet that, let me just bring it up for you. And I want you now to describe your context. What kind of learners do you have in that you tend to encounter in your courses? So for example, are they, well, I don't want to prompt you, but describe your learners. What are some of the things that you notice in your sessions when you are teaching in your courses? What good and bad, what do you notice about your learners? Not to add anything, I see some persons are adding already. Good. So you just double click anywhere, or you could click on the icon on the lower right side, the plus sign, and type your response. Now you would see other responses there, because it's something I like to keep, and I'll explain as we await your input. In most cases, what we found is that a lot of students are the same across the board. Students don't like to read. Sometimes we hear the same thing. Students don't like to read. They come with certain preconceived notions. So what are some of the things that you encounter in your particular context? It might be the same as some of the others that have gone before, but it might be particularly different or unique in your situation. So go ahead and click on that link and insert your responses, please. Okay, good. So we have some coming in. Students prefer to use the chat than to respond. Yes, that is true. That is true. All right, because they feel a little more, it's almost like asking them to come in the front of the class and speak. They would avoid that at all costs. But if they can stay in their seat or whatnot, I'm just making the analogy of the face-to-face class. If they can sit in their seat and maybe ask the question from there, they might feel much more comfortable to do that. Most are working adults. Sorry, due to my vibrant personality, many of the students try to emulate my behavioral personality. They aim to please. I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So you're an influencer. All right. Most are working adults. Many do not have much exposure to the university academic environment. Okay. That is a very good, I like that, because it tells me that you're really, you know, taking note of the kinds of students you have in your courses. Someone said they range along the spectrum. Some are comfortable with technology, and some are stuck in face-to-face. I think stuck in face-to-face mode, and are very reluctant to cope with it. Yes, that is true. In some cases, and it's really your it's almost like it's placed in your hands now to kind of guide them along. They might need a little hand holding, you know, that support to bring them, you know, move them along in this transition to online teaching and learning. All right. Someone said they think you're a very vibrant teacher. That's good. That's good, and it's good to get some feedback from your students so you can, you know, understand things from their perspectives.
Excuse me, Justin, Godfrey.
Yes. Yes, go right ahead.
Did you say simply click on the option in the link, the options in the link, and you would get it? I've tried that, but it doesn't seem to be working.
Oh, no, did you click on the link?
I'm in the website. I clicked on the link and I'm in the website with all the options.
Right. So all you have to do.
I thought if you clicked on one of the options, that was it. But
no, but I don't know what options you're referring to. You could click anywhere on the wall.
I'm seeing the wall. Yeah. So
right.
How do
so
I
double click
choose one of
wall.
those?
Double click anywhere on the wall.
Oh,
not
double
on the
click.
response.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I was clicking once. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Let's double click. Okay, thanks.
Yes. Yes, go right ahead. Rajiv?
Yeah. So then you just upload it, is that it?
Yes, once you add it to the page, I should be able to see it. I see we have a raised hand. Go right ahead. Be sure to use your mic in case you're speaking. We can't hear. Rajiv? Okay, you might probably want to, we can't hear anything, but you could probably type in the chat and you could see your contribution there. All right. Someone said adults experience teaching in the education system similar entry qualifications have to balance personal and professional lives. Oh, yes. And they vary in terms of self-directed learning and need direction. Yes, yes. Good, your course content, so it's a very hands-on, practical kind of course, correct? For that type of person. Look, we have quite a bit of responses here. So generally interactive sessions depends a lot on how effectively I moderate. Adults who are working, so time management is critical. Good question. How do you add this to My Learning? You could add it by creating a link. In fact, I'll show you how to create a Padlet now. Because I think it's something that you could easily fold into your instruction and add to your My Learning course site. All right, now you could do this in two ways. You could do it by just sharing a link, or even like the way I'm using it. So you could use it synchronously and asynchronously. All right, so you could use it like what I'm doing now, which is synchronously, or you could add it to My Learning and they can post their responses there. Another way you can use it for consideration would be let them create a Padlet, and I'll show you why you could do that. Well, not why, but it's a good way if students have a project that you want them to work on and you want to have that sort of repository, you know, or portfolio of their work. This is also a good tool that could facilitate just that. All right. So I'll show you in just a bit how to use this and fold it into not just your instruction, but also in My Learning. Yes, no problem, Tracy. Right. Yes, and Camellia, support is critical. That is true. All right, and that helps with the change management as well. you know, so students don't feel overwhelmed by it. So what I'm going to ask you to do very quickly is go to, you could do a quick Google search and type padlet.com. I could provide you with the link as well. All right, I think I'm already logged in, so it's going to take me there, but just type in padlet.com. I could provide you with the link in, if you'd like, in the chat. You're going to go to padlet.com. Let me know when you're there. And once you click on that link I provided in the chat, you're going to see, you should see close to the top, well not top, but you should see sign up for free. It's usually a pink button.
So go ahead with that.
Yeah. Yes, click sign up for free. Sign up for free. And I'll show you what it looks like. Let me share another screen just to give you some guidance. It should look something like this. Yeah? And you're going to see this pink button here, sign up for free. And of course, from there, you'll see a page that looks like this, where you could insert your email account and your password. You would see I'm beautiful and so on. And now Padlet has certain intuitive features that, you know, part of it is somewhat of a social media platform. So if you choose, you could actually have you could share it on a Facebook account, you know, on these different things. You could share it on Twitter, etc., etc. And yes, you could sign in with your Google account as well. Now, one of the things you would find, as I mentioned, that it's under the entire umbrella of Google Apps. It's not really a Google app, but it works harmoniously with Google Apps. So, for example, you would be able to pull things from YouTube, videos from YouTube. You could the YouTube search engine is embedded within Padlet, right? And which we know YouTube and Facebook and all of these things are also part of the Google umbrella. Or you want to download it? I haven't downloaded it. I prefer the web-based application. The download feature is newer, I would say that, and so I like to wait until things settle down and with regard to any those modifications. Right. So if it's easier for you, Camille, by all means you could download it, and I'll definitely like to hear how it is on your end. If it's a smooth transition, or if it's the functionality of it, if there are several glitches, you know, that sort of thing. So it's good to know. All right. Now, once you create your Padlet, you want to make sure that you may get an email, depending on what account you use, just to verify your account. All right. So be mindful of that, please. So once you log in, so hopefully everyone has created a Padlet account, yeah? Let me know if you encountered any problems. So once you are logged in, you should see a page that looks something like this. Yeah, you're not going to see all the Padlets that I have here, but you're definitely going to see these options at the top right side with make a Padlet, join a Padlet, etc., etc. Now remember, we're on the free account, so that comes with certain limitations, but you can definitely, many of these Padlets here have been shared with me, or I created them myself, and that sort of thing. So I want you to click on make a Padlet. Make a Padlet. That's the top left side. Make a Padlet. It's the pink button at the top left side. Make a Padlet. And it should take you to a page where you have to, you see a couple different options. What I want you to do is select the first option, which is, it's really just the design of how you want the posts on that Padlet to be laid out. So for now, click the first one, which I think is good, I think.
That's a wall.
Yes, the wall. Right? And it will take you to a page that looks something like, well, I'm going to show you in just a bit. It may not look exactly like this, but follow with me and you do it on your end and I'll walk you through. All right, so you're going to see a module on the, not module, sorry, a menu on the right side. First things first, you want to make sure and give your Padlet a title. All right, so give it a title. You know what, let me just stick with what I have. So give it a title. It helps if the title is linked to the particular module or topic, or even, well, depending on how you're going to use it, the course. If it's something that's ongoing throughout the entire course, you might want to, give it a similar name. In my case, I'm just using it for this particular geography topic. So once you give it a title, I want you now to give it a description. Now, in the description field, you want to make sure and include the instructions for the activity. In other words, what do you want students to do with this Padlet? So I have here, for example, based on our previous session, elaborate on one aspect of the hydrological cycle. And I put a little note, you cannot use any aspect or feature of the cycle that has already been posted by another student. So it means that they can only, it adds some urgency on their part to post something about the hydrological cycle before all of the easy ones get taken out. All right, so you state the instructions. So I'll give you a couple more seconds to type in the instructions there. And once you've done that, you go straight, just to kind of give you an idea here. So you see icon, you can leave that as none. The copy to clipboard, this is just a link that takes you to that you can either share or takes you to your Padlet. All right. So you don't need to copy this now. You don't need it now. After that, you're going to tweak the look and feel of your particular Padlet in wallpaper. So you click on the icon next to the wallpaper. You have a couple different options. You may select solid colors. So for example, red, brown, orange, white, etc. If you want something very neutral. You may choose gradients, which will have like different hues, you know, from blue to yellow and sometimes from, you know, slight purple and those sorts of things. And you have different options as you see here. You might select a texture, so something that has a pattern in it. So like the one I just showed you with bricks, that's a texture or pattern. All right. And you might even want to use pictures that they already provide, you know, by default. So you could have any picture that is relevant to you. Now, I recommend that you choose pictures or backgrounds that are not too busy, but yet relevant to what you would like to include. So if it's geography, for example, I think there's a map of the world here, right? If it's something that deals with animals, you might want to include, for example, you know, you have quite a range, right? Plants, flowers, etc., etc. Or you might want to upload your own background based on something that, you know, you might have, and if it's a decent picture. All right. The color scheme, so I'll give you a couple seconds to select the background. The color scheme is, you could leave that as is, that could stay as well as the font. I just normally select the first one. All right, the font is, you know, basically how the text looks, whether you want something that is more playful or standard. Yeah, I aim more for the standard. So good. Now, then under that, you're going to deal with the settings as it pertains to postings and what appears on your wall. So with attribution, and the attribution really refers to the identification of the person who's making the post. So you might want to turn that on so you can see which students are posting certain things. And then you might even want to enable persons to make comments on each other's posts. Yeah? So far, so good? You might also want to enable reactions. Now, reactions could be votes, likes, grades, or ratings, sorry. I tend to aim more for likes because, you know, it adds for that social networking feel to it. So this has social media or social networking capabilities, but in a more controlled environment than, let's say, Facebook and other web pages or sites. So right under that, you'll create settings for content, right? And that really is dealing with ensuring that there's no profanity, that, you know, that kind of thing. So I don't recommend that you click moderator to approve. Well, you would know your students, but the reason I'm saying that is because you will have to, especially if you have a large class, you're going to have to approve every post before it's even made, which might be a bit onerous on your part. All right. But you definitely want to enable the profanity filter. So if a student wants to use an expletive, it would replace it with a more pleasant emoji. All right. And I know Prof is probably laughing because you're the communication specialist here, right? So I guess you wouldn't mind that at all. So once you've done that, you scroll up. Well, you don't have to scroll up. You could just click Save. And that's it. You click on anywhere on your wall, and you have it there. Now, you just did the posting, so you know how to post in a wall. You just double click anywhere. And the good thing with Padlet, it allows you to post web links, not just text, web links, images, videos, you name it, you could post it on this wall. So for example, I would post a link. Let's say I wanted to post a YouTube link, a YouTube video, sorry. As you see YouTube here, remember I said it's all synced, almost. And you could easily do a simple search. So let's say if I'm looking for surface runoff, okay, I have here. All right, so I could select this video and add it here. And I could put surface runoff, or a student could post it. So we have here, I could put my name, and I could put a little blurb on it. This is what surface runoff looks like in the hydrological cycle. All right, and then I click publish, and it's there. So what I want you to do now is you could post a couple things, or you could share it with others in the session to check it out or to see it. If I wanted to put GIFs as well, I could do that. Let's say I wanted to put floods. All right. So you have the effects of intense surface runoff. All right, so they're different, and you could even include documents if you'd like. So let's say if I wanted to include a document, I can easily search and bring it into the what you call it, the page. All right. So let's say I'm going to select this, bring it there, and then post. I know this doesn't have anything to do with flooded, but it was just an example. So once you have you've made those posts, right? What about copyright issues? It doesn't steal the information. You still see as you see there, the owner of or creator of the content. You are just kind of collating it or bringing it all in one space, whether it's for students to have access to or to see or review, or for them to put together for others to access. All right. So what I want you, thank you so much, Tracy. You definitely beat me to it. So I was gonna ask you now to share your Padlets by simply clicking on the share button at the top right side, and you can copy the link and paste it in the chat. while you're doing that, I want to show you what Padlet can also do. Now, you can embed it in your My Learning course site. And please stick a pin in that so I can try and show you at the end of this session. And you can also download it as a PDF. So let's say if I wanted to, I ask students to do this as a project that is ongoing throughout the entire semester, then they can, they would give me access to it, but then you want them to submit a final report of some sort. Yeah. Now, mind you could put, it doesn't have to be stuff on the web, but if students have things that they would like to upload from there, or you would like to include things from your flash drive and desktop and whatnot, by all means, you could do that here. Now, look at what happens here, guys. Once it's saved as a PDF, all of the links are active links. So if it's the video that I had on Surface Runoff, then look at what happens. I click on it and it takes me straight to the site, right? And they elaborate on Surface Runoff.
It occupies a fraction of the HRU land surface area and has a specified maximum water holding capacity.
Also,
fraction of the HRU.
If I wanted to open this document, it will open Teaching in Blended Environments, and that's an article right there. All right. If I wanted to see this GIF, then I click on it and it comes up right there. Now, all of this can also be shared in your Padlet. So this video on Surface Runoff will also play in here.
The fraction of impervious area minus the fraction of.
So I could play it in YouTube, I could play it in my Padlet, and if I embed my Padlet into My Learning, it will play through My Learning.
Snow melt as computed in the snow module.
All right. Any questions on Padlet? Okay, I see Tracy and Roderick included theirs in the chat, so good. Very good, Stacy. Sorry, very good, Tracy. Nice, nice, very good, very good. Roderick, you included yours as well. All right, Roderick. All right, very good. Nice. So that's basically it for Padlet, and this is one way in which you could engage your students remotely. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a synchronous activity. It can be done asynchronously and for different activities. Yeah. Whether you want students to create a portfolio on a particular topic or question, if you want to use it for collaborative purposes, where students could, collaborate on their work and that sort of thing. I see we have some more examples, right? So I'm looking at, okay, good. Pedagogy, drama, sorry. Okay, I'm not seeing any posts, but that's okay. So good, we have that, nice. So one of the things that before we went into Padlet, it was really to elaborate very briefly on the need for a learner analysis. Now, a learner analysis ensures that you understand the target group. Who are you teaching? So you have here, you want to understand the person's name, the student's profile, basically. Their age, so some of you mentioned mature students, so working students, all of these things are part and parcel of what a learner analysis should indicate. What are some of the preconceived notions that they come with? Is the class cohort tightly knit, or is it that they are very much divided and prefer individual work and that kind of thing? Yeah? How are you going to structure your class knowing that you're dealing with students who are coming from a whole day of work and now have to, sit for a couple hours in your class? That informs you know, all of this informs what we call your instruction, right? And what sort of activities you incorporate in there. Yeah? Now, in our context, it's very easy to get a learner analysis, or some people might call it a diagnostic test or pre-test, but I don't want to call it all that. I would prefer to call it a needs assessment, right? The needs assessment, you could find that out from Banner. So you have your class list. You would know how many persons are from different programs, or, you know, that sort of thing, what courses they may have done already, that, you know, general information. Or you might do a sort of introductory activity. So for example, I did the poll earlier at the beginning of this session, and I also did the feedback activity. So I was able to gauge to do a needs analysis of you in this session, right? Because it let me know, okay, I know from the poll, for example, that most persons are familiar with Blackboard, and that's on Zoom and various things. So generally, once you get that information, you want to use that to inform your instruction. So if I were to ask you, Chanel, what are some of the preconceived notions? Sorry, what are some of the traits that your students have out of these here? Or Alison, or Grace, anybody could elaborate. Any of these resonate? Right, go right ahead, Chanel.
My students, they enter on time, so they enter early, and they seem very enthusiastic about the information. I mean, it depends on the level, like whether it's level 1 or level 2, but we now start, so it's a new group, so I'm starting to engage.
Oh, you got cut off there. But that's okay, that's okay. I think we got a good bit right there. So you're definitely on the right track. All right. Professor Steele, is there anything here that you notice? So for example, when you I think you do a course on health communication, correct? Are there any sort of preconceived notions that you find students come with when at the beginning of that course?
Well, there are two sets of students. One would be medical students, and so their ideas might be quite different to those who are communication students learning about communicating in a health context.
Right, right. So how do you deal with that?
Well, at present, I have them in separate. If I have to interact with them, it's in separate contexts. I tried creating a session where I would have both sets of students because I thought it would be rather exciting to have actual doctors and other nurses and other people sitting in a class together with my grad students who are learning about communication in a health context.
Right, right.
But that didn't work out for a number of reasons I won't go into.
Yeah, that's no problem.
You know, but basically we couldn't have that situation. But that would be if you have a mixed cohort, if you have mixed people with mixed backgrounds, you have to tailor what you're doing to pitch the work at each person's area of interest.
Exactly, exactly. And that's exactly what this learner analysis is all about. Really trying to understand your learners so that you can be very intentional and strategic in how you meet their learning needs, and engage them, because once you know these things, you know basically how to the speed. I know Calicia asks about the slower or faster feature in Blackboard when we started the session. So look, we have here the pace of the lesson. How quickly do you go through something, or do you need to go in a little more slowly and in detail? What kinds of activities that you might need? You may not need all activities given the you know, you might have given the level at which your learners are at, all right, you might be able to skip certain activities, yeah? And you know, you really want to understand even the kinds of learners that you have. So when you understand that, you know how to engage them, right? Picture it like this. Your goal really is to get to Piarco International Airport, right? That's the goal. And you know, and if you make the analogy, your goal is to make sure that you take students from where they are to where they need to be, whatever that is. Once you know where you are at and where the destination is, which is the airport, you could decide what is the best technique or tool or approach to get to the airport. So if you're in South Trinidad and you want to get to the airport, you're probably not going to use a bicycle, right? Or you're probably not going to walk, but you'll probably use a vehicle, right? If you're in South Trinidad and you want to get to Port of Spain, you might probably you have different options there. You could use a vehicle or a taxi or something, or you could even use a ferry. Well, hopefully the ferry is back up and running, but but you understand what I'm trying to say. Once you understand the target group, aka your students, then you know how to navigate accordingly. So engagement is something that is active. Remember I mentioned earlier that in your course you have your course content, but you also have your course activities. Activity is more than just, okay, they show up for class, right? But really, how are they being engaged? How are they participating in the session? Now, Philip Schlechte has a sort of model or levels of engagement. And I don't have to go too much into detail, but this is kind of what it is in a nutshell. Really what we want to aim for is high engagement. We know we want engagement. The reality is that we sometimes get one of the others or more of the others. Right. Learning is, let me just bring that back up, sorry. The learning journey is more interesting than the destination, exactly. Because really it's in the journey or the process, you know, there's a school of thought that calls teaching and learning as a process and not just the accomplishment of certain learning outcomes, but it's a process or experience, because that is where students develop certain skills that would go beyond the context of your particular course. All right, so it's really more important. You're very right. The journey or the process, which would incorporate the tools, technology tools, the learning activities, and so on that you use along the way. All right, to get students to where they need to be. So with this model, as you see here now, could you identify? You know, anybody? You could use your mic or chat. Are you able to identify students who fit any of these? And you could identify the level if possible. So were students rebellious in your classes, really just being disruptive, combative, not really producing high quality work? Or you might have students who just want to pass the course, right? Yeah, you know, and then you have those who really, you know, take this thing to heart, not just to pass the course, but they are so enthusiastic, right? Yes, Roderick, it will be. So yeah, so you have those instances where you have students who you know, really want to become, I don't want to call it enamored, but really enthusiastic or passionate about the course. All right, and part of the reason is because they become more actively involved in the process, and that's what the journey, as Prof. Steele mentioned earlier, the journey is really where they become more actively engaged or actively involved in the process. And really, the literature and the research has shown that that is kind of what we remember most. If you want to go into long-term memory as opposed to surface level working memory, which is short-term memory. So you may not remember everything that I said or say or have said in this session, but you will definitely remember creating that Padlet. Right? You see the difference there? Because with the Padlet, you were doing it. You were actively doing it and learning about it, as opposed to remembering everything I said. Right? So keep that in mind. With online learning, you want to make sure you give exactly. You want to remember. You want to kind of aim more for active involvement as opposed to passive learning. And this is all part of what we call learner-centered teaching and learning. All right? Learner-centered teaching and learning really is where you consider the learner's needs, all right, and or preferences. Exactly. Facilitate, and that's exactly it. So the facilitator is that guide on the side, as we say, as opposed to the sage and the stage. So you don't do all the talking, but you let students discover things on their own. You let students, explore these things. And the learner-centered approach or the student-centered approach helps with just that. It's where the learner's needs inform the instruction or the activities and the assessments and the pace of the class and everything along the way. Now, there are different instructional strategies that will facilitate just that. We have a game-based approach. I do a webinar on game-based learning, which is forthcoming as soon as things settle down a bit for the semester. All right. And then you have different, of course, synchronous, asynchronous, that goes without saying. You have the online discussions. You have what we call the flipped approach. So students have to do readings and so on outside of the class. But when they meet, like in a session like this, you go through different activities and that sort of thing with them. All right. Or problem-based approach. You might give students a problem and they have or a case study, and they have to now go and figure out, how to go about that, how to solve that case study. Yeah. So I have a little activity here. I'm going to put you into groups, and I'm going to give you just about 5 minutes roughly to what is an activity I like to call fast facts. You're just going to do a simple web search on any one of these instructional methods. Right? We see them here: active learning, cooperative learning, inductive teaching and learning, and experiential learning. So I'm going to put you in about 4 groups. All right? And we will take it from there. So let me explain very quickly. I'm going to put you into 4 groups. Each group is going to have roughly about 6 persons, 6 to 7 persons. The group with, yes, I will. So the group that I'm just going to take you through this, and right after we're going to breakout. I'll show you how to do breakout groups. So I'm going to give you this. So you're going to go into your groups and find 5 facts on your particular method. So the group with Chanel, Joseph, Nalini, I could probably, just for the sake of time, give you those, assign them to you. So Chanel's group, you have active learning. That's with Dawn Weeks, Adeyanju Anthony, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Isadora. Just now it seems to be changing because I think persons are having connectivity issues. So let me.
Izora.
Right, Izora. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
Just give me 1 sec because the groups are changing as persons are having connectivity issues. So the group with Allison, I'll just call one person. So Allison or Chanel, you guys have active learning. All right? Active learning. Beverly and Desiree and that group, that is with Godfrey, and everybody, and so on, you guys have cooperative learning. Cooperative learning. Calicia. Just now, I think Chanel, you're in 2 groups. Is that so, Chanel?
I'm not sure. Can you advise?
Okay, I think I see you in group 3 now. Okay, I'll put you in. I'll still leave you in group 1. No, I'll put you in group 3. So group 1, we have Grace Jackson, Joanna Charles, Nalini Kalu, Sinitra, and Yvonne. So you guys have active learning. The group with Beverly, Desiree, Godfrey, and so on, you guys have cooperative learning. Calicia, Chanel, Azora, I hope I pronounced it correctly, Catherine, and so on.
Yes, you got it right, yes.
Thank you so much. I think I know of someone who's a similar name. But
We have a common friend called Isadora, yes.
Yes. So I think I just saw it and just assumed it was right.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that. And then we have the 4th group. So sorry, Calicia and Chanel and so on, you guys have inductive teaching and learning. Inductive teaching and learning. And the 4th group with Elizabeth and Camille and Allison and so on, and Roger and Tracy, you guys have experiential learning. All right? So I'll give you just about 5 minutes in the breakout groups to find 5 facts or 5 things about those, your assigned learning method, instructional method, and we'll come back at about 21 past 3, somewhere there, 22 minutes past 3. And then I'll show you a little bit more on, you'll come and present on it, and then I'll show you a little bit more in terms of engaging students in the Blackboard platform and otherwise, and more, with breakout groups and so on. Okay? Yes, I'm now going to put you in the breakout groups. Oh, Beverly, I think you probably got bumped off. All right, which group were you in? Beverly?
Right.
All right. That is a quickie, right? A quick one.
Yes. It wasn't 20 minutes, it was 20 seconds.
Yeah, because we were now starting to get into the whole discussion. I mean, we have some things, but it was getting interesting.
That is good. I like that. I like that. So I only wanted to give you 5 minutes just because I'm mindful of the time. But I wanted to give you that experience in terms of to explore the different aspects of it. So let's start with group one. I think you guys had active learning. Anyone wants to elaborate on it? And you don't have to be perfect. I'm not looking for perfection. Just, I know you would have scratched the surface in terms of what you were able to find. Anybody? I think group one had.
Hi.
Yes, Nalini, go right ahead.
Okay, so within the group, I was trying to create a PowerPoint. We didn't have that much time, so I have one slide.
Let me just, you know how to share in Blackboard, right? Do you want to share your slide? Or you good? Okay, all right.
I'll share it. I'll share it. I'll share the one slide.
Emphasis on one slide, right? You go right ahead. And while you do that, this is another way in which I'm going to elaborate on it later on, but this is another way in which you could engage your students online by making them the presenters and whatnot, so they could do their presentations and so on. And I'll explain that in just a bit. Go right ahead, Nalini.
Yeah, I have to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there are different things you could do to engage your students in this platform as well. Besides feedback, besides Padlet, besides poll everywhere. I'm just going to take a couple more minutes just to show you that breakout groups and so on, 2 other features, and that's it. Go ahead, Nalini.
I can't. I'm getting some problems with drag and drop. Right. Okay.
Okay.
I have it. It's uploading now.
Okay, no problem. The one slide, as you would say.
The one slide. Okay, it's 2 because there's a title slide, right?
Yeah. No problem at all.
So we had group 1. I didn't even get a chance to get my my fellow group members' names, but Grace gave me a link, and this was one of the pictures on the link, right? So we just had an active learning session with you because we just had to create the Padlet, and within creating the Padlet, I actually uploaded my Padlet to my e-learning and everything like that already for my course.
There you go.
So it was very active in doing. I was very active in doing that. So and in many of your webinars, Dr. Zephyrin, you have been very instructive in letting us learn actively. So that is one of the things that I appreciate about all these my e-learning, well, not my e-learning, these courses from Settle, right? So this is the picture that I got a chance to copy, right? So people remember 90% of what they do and 70% of what they say and write. In starting with well, my sister, she's a secondary school teacher. So she says even though she is doing online learning and she have PowerPoint presentations and whatnot, she say, I just make sure that my students, I call out notes and my students write. Because in secondary schools, she knows that her students are not very attentive. And they could get in a lot of trouble, and it's a boys' school. So she knows her students, right?
Right.
And
So again, the importance of understanding your learner. So go ahead. Good.
Right. And then in my course, what I teach, I try to engage my students with polls, with case studies and videos and whatnot. I even have them, well, today, thankfully, I learned what these reactions, the feedback reactions were for. So I was really grateful for that. So because I do miss the actual, like having my facial expressions and things sometimes. So, you know, so, right. So that was my contribution to active learning. I don't know if any other member of the group wants to add anything. But thank you to Grace for giving me that picture.
Yes, because you have 2 slides on your thing. Yes.
2 slides.
Definitely. Right. Someone is asking, I think in the chat, how to. Let me just read that. Oh, it's not okay. 1 sec.
Yeah, when you have the chats in the breakout session, they don't. I am not seeing them when we come out of the breakout sessions. Also, I would have had a few more contributions because I had other persons sent messages on the chats and I didn't.
Not a
sorry.
problem at all. All right, so I'll definitely
it was
show.
Entertaining.
No problem at all. No problem at all. All right, so let's go to group 2. Good job, group 1. Good job, excellent job.
Okay, I can volunteer some for the group and other persons will add in what I've forgotten. So you asked us to identify 5 facts, so we look at it from the perspective of some basic characteristics of cooperative learning, which was our focus. So 1, it is collaborative, very collaborative in nature, with an emphasis on group activities, group cooperation and collaboration. There are particular kinds of strategies which can facilitate the cooperative learning, such as think, pair, share, timed pair, share. Can't remember some of the others, so that's 2. Despite even though it is grounded in group activity and collaboration, even within the groups, each individual has a responsibility towards the achievement of the collective group. The teacher's role is facilitative rather than directive, and I don't remember a 5th one. I don't know if anybody else from the group could volunteer.
Excellent. Well, I mean, you guys have an advantage.
Cooperative learning raise students' achievement and they build positive relationship among the students because we have students with different abilities working together.
Right. Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for that, group 2. Group 3?
Okay, I'll offer to start. And we didn't even get a chance to bond in 5 minutes, so I hope that was poorly. So this is inductive teaching and learning, and this describes teaching, learning through discovery and experiencing. So certain kinds of learning. It's a higher order form of learning. As opposed to, this is kind of opposed to the traditional deductive learning strategies. Some examples are problem-based learning, project-based learning, case-based learning, and so on. And these generally encourage collaborative learning strategies. So those are what I have so far. I think I have more, but I forgot. Yes. Anybody else wants? We had all notes. We had the notes in the chat, and then we lost it.
But no, you guys did really good. I like the thorough approach. You mentioned higher order, thinking skills, and you were making the connection because that's what this activity also is designed to do, to make those connections between the different approaches. So thank you so much for that. You did good. You did good.
Hey, thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, group 3. Group 4? Any representative from group 4 on experiential learning?
Okay, right. So we had experiential learning, and the time was very limited because we were now getting into the groove of the discussion. But some of the things we came up with is that, well, we looked at Kolb's experiential learning cycle that one of the members Googled in QuickTime. And it refers to some basic theoretical components, which we do see in the classroom, for example, concrete experience, reflective observation, active experimentation, and there was something else, right? I believe it's conceptualization. Now,
yes.
Also we discussed the types of experiential learning. So for example, your students can learn through things like exposing them to case studies, doing community research, as one of the other members pointed out, even things like field experience and internships. We, for example, looked at like Spanish. You take your students to the other country to get that level of immersion, and that's all part of experiential learning. And then there were some other things we talked about as it being a form of actual pedagogy. But time crept up on us. So that's one of our discussions centered on.
Excellent, excellent. I think you could give yourselves a round of applause there, because this, I mean, for the short time that you guys had, I think you did quite a thorough job of it. So what we normally have is sometimes, when I've done this before, we have a more competitive kind of thing, but time didn't allow this time. But that's perfectly fine. I think you guys got the gist of it. I see we have a raised hand. Go right ahead. Izora? Okay, I guess that was a false alarm. Okay. All right, but so this is just to provide a synopsis of what we just discovered, what we just explored. All right, and notice I didn't just tell you about it. Again, we took an active approach. All right, what we did just now, we kind of used some of the approaches I just identified for you. So we looked at collaborative approaches, an inquiry-based approach or webquest, an interactive approach. We use the Blackout breakout room, which I'll show you in just a bit, as well as we use the Blackboard Collaborate presenter and share screen features that group 1 certainly exemplified. And because of this, it was much more engaging than me just telling you what each approach is. I could have easily showed you that table with the different approaches, but then you wouldn't really remember it. So we see why an active approach is much more engaging. And there are different ways in which you could engage, of course, as I mentioned before. I know we're a little bit beyond the time, so I'm just going to ask you at this point for probably about just 10 minutes, if possible, so I can show you Blackboard breakout room and share screen feature, and that should be it. All right, is that okay? Now, we do have another session on Blackboard Collaborate 101, but I know there was a special request for breakout rooms and BBC presenters. Okay, great. Not a problem at all. So, I'm just going to, so there are different ways you can engage your students, of course, in My Learning, some of which are here. So we have these. But then when you're in Blackboard, or sometimes in some cases you might be in Zoom, you might want to engage your students in this actual session, like what we did. Now, there are different ways in which you could engage your students in Blackboard. You have, obviously, the breakout rooms, the polls, the annotations. Now, annotations is a good one. Now, annotations allows you to write or label any graphic on your slide. So let's say if I put this slide and I want you now to, let's look at this slide, for example, and I want you to insert your name or answer a particular question. All you have to do is click on the pen at the top of your, on the T at the top of your screen, just above the slide, you'll see T as in text. You click on it. With Blackboard's recent updates, you can tweak the font size, the font type or style, the color, etc. So I'm going to put, for me, I'm going to just select blue, and you click anywhere and start typing. So you could put your name, for example, anywhere on the slide. Someone put a full stop. Okay, good. So go ahead and type on the slide. Right, good. Calicia, well, bold and red, I just see. Yvonne, okay, good. Someone said testing. And this is a good way, guys. Now, as you're doing this, what I like to do with this feature is, let's say if I have a graphic, a diagram of some sort, or process. Camille, it's just the T at the top of the screen, just over the slide that's in front of you. When you click that T, you could just start, you click anywhere on the slide and start typing. So as I was saying, guys, normally I would have like a graphic. Let's say if it's, again, the hydrological cycle, I might want to get to label, to insert the labels on that graphic, yeah? Or if it's a process, or, you know, that kind of thing. It allows, you just provide the diagram, and students can label it accordingly. And that's a way of getting them to do the information and to do the learning and to be more actively involved than you just explaining it, right? If you wanted to draw, let's say you wanted to emphasize something, you could simply click on the top right side again. You would see drawing, or you would see, so you could draw, right? So somebody's drawing already, good. And you could draw. So if I wanted to highlight something, I don't know what that person is drawing there. It looks like a stick man, but that's okay. And you can draw. So if I wanted to highlight a particular word, I could even use, I like the smiley face. I can even use shapes, right? If I wanted to insert a square, a rectangle, that sort of thing, I can do that as well. All right. So there are different, so this is one way in which you could engage your students in that regard. All right. And if you wanted to clear it, you simply click the, I'm not sure if you would see it on your side, but there's a, right next to right, someone cleared it. Good. So you know how to do it. It's just a little dustbin close to the top right side, just above the slide, and you see it there. So that's annotations. One, it depends. If you are using different, it's very moody, I would say, on different browsers. So ideally, it should be Google Chrome that you should be using. Usually, Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer gives a bit of problems, but it works best on Google Chrome. All right. Just before I go into breakout rooms, there's also a feature where you could give students different privileges to present, to share content, and so on. Now, Nalini, right now I have you as a presenter, so I'll make you a moderator. And I want you to make someone else a moderator, Nalini, please. You could make anybody of your choice. Calicia, I'll also make you a moderator. And Godfrey, I'll also make you a moderator. Let me see one more person I could select. Catherine, I'll make you a moderator as well. Now, there are three different roles in Blackboard Collaborate. You have the moderator, who can do anything in a session. And really, the moderator should really only be you. Because you don't want your students to be moderators and they hijack the session, right? So I'm taking a chance here. Please don't touch too much, moderators. But I want you to definitely make other persons moderators. To do that, you would see when you go to the attendees list, the three, like a circle with a little ellipsis or 3 dots on the right side of the person's name. You simply click on that and you'll see a menu, and you could click Make Moderator or Presenter. So like I said, the moderator can do anything. The presenter is someone, let's say if you have students who need to present in your class and they have a particular session, PowerPoint like Nalini did, or they have to share their screen to demonstrate something, then they would need to be made presenters. The participants, however, they could write on a slide if you give them permission to do so, and they can participate in, in the chat and breakout groups and so on, but they don't have the privileges as the moderator and the presenter. All right. So this is one way in which you can engage students if they have to do presentations like what Nalini did just now. All right. And like I said, when you become so I'll add Desiree as a moderator too. So if you want to make other persons moderators and presenters and so on, it's just you go to the attendees list, click on the 3 dots next to each person's name, and then you click Make Moderator or Participant. All right. So very quickly, let's go into breakout groups, because I know that's I think I'm just ticking off what the special requests that we had during the course of the session. And so we're going into all right, Nalini. Good. So using breakout groups. So I'm going to show you the process very quickly. I'm going to ask Godfrey. I'm going to make other persons participants so it wouldn't confuse the process too much. Just a few other persons participants, because I only want Godfrey to follow the process, right? For now. And I'll do it again with someone else and whatnot. So we'll map, and I have the graphics for you to follow. So the first thing you want to do is click on that middle icon at the bottom, right? Which is where you would normally go to share screen. All right, we see it here in the graphic. And then you click Breakout Groups. Now don't go yet, because I don't want to lose it yet. So, all right, when you click, so Godfrey, did you do that yet?
Yes, and I see I can randomly assign, or I could decide number of groups.
Excellent. So you would see here that, well, first of all, make sure that box with include moderators in group assignment, make sure that is not ticked. Okay. The reason I'm saying that is because sometimes what happens when the moderator goes into the breakout groups, no problem at all. We'll definitely send you the recording. All right. Now, when the moderator goes in, sometimes, not all the time, it's just something that I've found, is when the moderator, no problem at all. When the moderator goes into some of the breakout groups, sometimes the recording stops. So I'm just letting you know that, and you have to click recording if there are no moderators in the main room. Sometimes that happens. It's just my observation, so I'm just alerting you.
That's a good tip.
All right. Yeah, but if that happens, then you just come back in the main room and you click. You re-click the record button if it happens to stop.
All right.
All right. So good. Just make that note, one time. So, and it's good. It's okay in your case because remember it will all be stored in your course shell, right? The recording. So, anyway, so once you've done that, you will see now that you can select different things. So, for example, the number of groups.
Let's suppose I have already created 7 groups in my class of 70 people.
Right.
Can I link to those groups from BBC?
Yes. In a case like that, you will do custom assignment as opposed to random assignment.
Ah, yes.
Now, if you're doing that, it might take a little bit of time because you have to now make sure those specific persons are in your groups.
Yes.
I would recommend that maybe if you do it before, you send them on a break, give them a little 5 minutes to go and stretch their feet. It depends on how long your session is. You could do two things. Either have someone, an assistant with you to kind of, you know, assign persons to specific groups while so you have that smooth transition into the breakout group, as opposed to that little lull where you have to now put persons into groups manually.
Yes.
The other thing would be to send them on a short 5-minute break, and then when they come back, they go straight into their breakout groups. So during that break, you are assigning them into their groups.
Yes.
All right. So just a note, that's just something to note when you're doing it. So thank you for that question.
Okay.
Once you do that, so to assign them to specific groups, you're gonna see when you scroll a little lower down, Godfrey, you're gonna see basically tiles with persons' names.
Yes.
Right. So to move persons into different groups, you simply drag the tile to a particular group.
Okay.
To drag the person's name to a particular group.
All right. That's cool. Straightforward.
No problem at all. And once you do that, then all you have to do is click start. You don't have to click start now, but you click start and then everyone will be in the breakout groups that you assign them to. Now you would notice the system also lets you know how many persons are in each group if you do a random assignment. All right. So it's very much user-friendly like that. We don't have to go into the breakout groups again. We could probably let someone else, but because basically once you do that, Godfrey, all you have to do is click start and it takes them straight into the breakout group. Right? You don't have to do that now, but that will be the button that will take, once you set up everything, it takes them straight to the breakout group. Now, you would see also, Godfrey, a button, a checkbox with allow attendees to switch groups. Right? Make sure that is not checked or not ticked. You don't want to, yes, right? So, so just noting that. Anyone else wants a shot at it? Or do you think we are good? Roderick or Camille, anybody wants to, and I'll walk you through it. Okay, Desiree is good. All right, okay, good. And it's also on the slide as you see how to do it. So it's just to go to breakout groups as we see here. And then, no problem, Roger. And excellent, good. And then you select the settings as we see here, and then you click start. And that's it. All right. So I know we went a little beyond the time, but I think it was, I really wanted to make sure those special requests were met. I know we have another workshop that is specifically on Blackboard that will cover some of these things in detail, but I really wanted to put it in. I just had it in the slideshow just in case, because I know sometimes that is an issue, especially as we're going into the new semester, or as the new semester has already begun. So, no problem at all, Roderick. Excellent. So that basically should bring us to a close. Now, just letting you know some other tools we have. Sure, this slide with the table, was it this one?
Yeah, that's the one with the different things that you had us do.
Right, right.
Yes. Okay,
no problem.
Great. Thanks.
I think someone also asked a question. How do you send messages to Break? Oh, that is a good question. Thank you so much for that. Now, the reason I'm saying that's a good question is because it's something that was also included in the update to Blackboard. Now, you would notice Blackboard now is looking a little different from how it looked last year, for those of you who used it last year. It's very simple. Now, this was a feature that was more so in Zoom and not so much in Blackboard, but now we have it in Blackboard, where if you are in the main room as a moderator, once you're in the main room, you could send messages to all the, and students are in the breakout groups, you could send messages through the normal chat and all the members of the breakout groups will get it. Does that answer your question? Great. So basically, you're not really doing anything. You're simply just using the normal chat that you've always been using in the main room, like what we have here. It's just that it will be linked. The main chat is linked to all the breakout groups, so students can. You don't have to go in manually. That's what we used to do like last year. And you have to go into, let's say, if Godfrey had 7 groups of 10 persons, he would have to manually go in and tell each person that, listen, you have 1 minute left. And that is quite onerous. So now we can simply stay in the main room and post the instructions or post messages to students to give them a time limit, as opposed to being totally bumped out and coming back into the main room without any prior notice. So some tips as we go forward. You want to make teaching in the online environment, make it relevant, participatory. And when I say relevant, with the times. As Godfrey mentioned earlier, you used this question about the vaccines and health communication. So these things, use current things, because that's what one is going on in the world right now, but it's also what students will be able to identify with. Yeah, because they are experiencing it in real life. And it helps for that sort of authentic learning experience. Make it participatory, that goes without saying. I think we explored that and interactive throughout this session. Make it fun, yeah, because then it becomes more memorable, it becomes less laborious. Even if it is difficult, it makes sure that it allows them to be engaged, right? So much so that they will work through the difficulties. And make it meaningful or memorable. So it's not just you cover the content, but you engage them and they go, it's the stuff that they learned would stay into long-term memory and not leave when they leave the session. Yeah? I know we had some questions along the way. Any other questions perhaps?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, good. Desiree has a question. How do you access the recordings? I could show you how to do that. Let me show you instead of just telling you. To access the recordings, when you go to, let me share my screen, sorry, very quickly. There's a space, it's all stored in your My Learning course. So when you go to, let me see if I can bring it up. Right, so when you go to, let me just find my, right. When you go to your course site, so let's say if I wanted to go to some of my courses, all right, let me find a normal, right, let's say I'm going into this. Oh no, I don't have Blackboard here, so let's go to another one, virtual learning. And I want to access those recordings. Then I simply go to Blackboard, right, there's Blackboard. And you would see, now these are the sessions that we normally have, but then I want to access the recordings. So you would click here and you see recordings. By default, it's set to sessions. But if you want to go to the recordings, you simply click on this little menu here. Let me show it again. So it's on the left side of sessions. You click on recordings, and it will show you all the recordings within a particular range. If it's beyond a month, then you simply specify from when to when. So let's say if I wanted to go from 2020 or something of that sort, then I could implement that. All right, or if I wanted to do a search by session, I could do that as well. All right. Let's just click a random time, right? So there was none there up to 2019, but all the recordings will be listed accordingly. All right.
Great, thanks, Justin.
No problem at all. Any other questions? Catherine, good question. To block out background noises, I would recommend, well, see, it would depend on the device you're using, your microphone and your headset. If you use one of those headsets that, has a big sponge that would cover basically your entire ear, and the microphone is right in front of your mouth, those are the microphones that are designed to, or devices that are designed to block out background noises. And they're fairly reasonable now in different tech stores and so on. All right? Not a problem at all. So I think on that note, we could probably end the session. If you have any questions, of course, you can always feel free to send us as well. Sure, the email, sure. Well, first of all, there's this. If it's a technical question, such as you're not able to access My Learning, account issues, and so on, you definitely want to send an email to servicedesk@sta.uwi.edu or myelearning@sta.uwi.edu. Or you could even, and of course, if it's relevant to teaching and learning and more functional issues in My Learning or Blackboard, you could definitely send an email to me as well, or ctl_bl@sta.uwi.edu. And you can also send an email, directly to me, if as well. All right, and depending on what it is, I might probably send it to Service Desk or help you directly. I'm looking at the chat just before. It takes a while, though. Yeah, so just if you want to, it depends on what it is. If it is that is something you want to figure out.
I sent a request since Tuesday, still waiting. I think they are under-resourced. I don't think they have enough staff.
Yeah, if that is the case, they normally have a time window to respond, so hopefully you get that response today. If not, I don't know what the request is. You might probably want to forward it to me or at least alert me to it, and I could try to see.
Enrollment. It's the same one about enrolling on editing teachers.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll try to follow up with them on that and see what's the status of it.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Okay.
No problem at all.
I know they're under pressure. They're under a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Normally at the beginning of the semester or just before, it tends to be a lot for them as well.
Yes,
changing the background. I see Camille has.
Wonderful session today.
No problem at all, Prof. By all, I mean, you're most welcome. Everyone, for that matter. So I'm just answering some of the other questions I see in the chat. The background, blurring it. No, this Blackboard doesn't have that feature yet. All right. Grace said, "You're most welcome. You're most welcome." Catherine has a question. Good question, Catherine. That was an update in which that feature came out, and I'm working with them currently to see if it can be put back in. It doesn't seem like it can be. We used to have a pointer in Blackboard. Godfrey might probably remember it as well. But now they gave a workaround where it's like you could draw a line and that sort of thing, but that doesn't really work. You know what I mean? If it's a if you want to point to something and whatnot, you point it there. But I don't really like that, so I rejected that recommendation because you're gonna have to be changing it for every slide. So yeah, so I rejected that respectfully, and we're trying to see if we could work with the contractors to put it back in. Yeah. So okay, thank you for that.
I have to leave. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great afternoon. All right.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
You too.